those who don't have a lot of privilege or have a lot of rights pre-Islam. So amongst them, of course, we know that women did not have the inheritance before. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these verses that come afterwards as well, of the ahkam, there's a lot of protection that is given to those that are underprivileged. Whether it's women, whether it's orphans, whatever it is, there are a lot of protections that are given as a part of this. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen that we're Muslims, so we take a lot of this for granted, right? But even until recently, women did not have inheritance rights, even in American law or other laws. But Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we've been Muslims and we've had Islam for 1400 plus years, and we've had these established a while ago. SubhanAllah, the verse starts with yusikum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yusikum Allah fi awladikum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you this command, okay, in your children. And the Mufassirin, they talk about something beautiful. It says the first thing is, any of us who have children understand how beautiful it is, how much love you have for them. So as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is starting these verses about inheritance with something that is beloved to your heart, your children, so that we can all listen directly to these with an open heart. If your money is going somewhere else, maybe your heart would not be as open. But now you know that this is going, in terms of like to your children initially, at least this is the focus here initially, that your heart might be open to listen to the rest of the commandments coming afterwards. So yusikum Allah fi awladikum. The second thing Allah says, لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. For the male, they have double the share of the female. Also the scholars talk about, the Mufassirin talk about this, is there are many different other ways of saying the same verse. For instance, Allah could have said, the woman has half the share of the man. Allah did not say that. Allah said, the male have double the share of the female. Which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in establishing these ahkam, these rights, these rulings, He made the asl, the main thing, is the right of the woman first. Said first establishing the right of the woman, she is the standard. And then say what? A male has double of this. That's establishing their rights. Because we said before Islam, there was no rights. So making the standard that of the woman, initially, from the beginning. لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ. And it said it's not half. It said man has something and then the woman takes half. No, it said the woman takes her share, fair share, and her brother, لِلذَّكَرِ, in that case, her brother takes double of that. And I said, Imam Majid talked about this. Sheikh Abdul Rafa talked about that. I'll just mention it again, because maybe this is recorded, so we'll just for that reason. There are social obligations associated with this. It's not just a matter of just mathematics at that point. Who takes what? And there are obligations on this. For the woman's share is her own, meaning that she takes it, she's in control of it, and nobody should be touching it in that sense. A man's share, if you're a husband, you're obligated to take care of your wife. So whatever money you get, not only that you have to pay for your own expenses, but you have to take care of that, of your wife. From a brother's perspective, if the sister does not have anyone to protect her, take care of her like a father, the brother should still be taking care of his sister. So the money that he gets is not just for him to take and just use for on his own, but there's a social system that is put in place to be able to protect and support that others in the family, including the women of the family. الذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين فإن كن, the verse says, it's in فإن كن نساء فوق اثنتين فلهن ثلث ما ترك. That if the person who died left behind no male children, but left female children only. And it says فوق اثنتين, more than two. Then what they take is 2/3 of the inheritance. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ وَاحِدَةً فَلَهَا النَّصْفُ. But if she's only one single, then she has half of the inheritance. The scholars also talk about this. It said in this verse it says فَوْقَ اثْنَتَيْنِ. It says two and above, like it says more than two. Okay. So they take the hukm, the ruling, for how about two only? So we talked about a male and a female, and how it's like a brother and a sister, how it's divided. We talked about if it's more than two, that means three or more. They take 2/3. We talked about one daughter. She takes half. What about two? Okay. They take these from these verses and other verses that come later on. Okay. But they say it's still 2/3. So she takes 1/3. Each one of them would take 1/3 in that case. وَلِأَبَوَيْهِ لِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا السُّدُسُ مِمَّا تَرَكَ إِنْ كَانَ لَهُ وَلَدٌ. His parents still have, his or her parents, they still have the 1/6 of the inheritance. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلَدٌ. But if he did not have any children, and then only his parents, he has parents, said, therefore, وَوَرِثَهَا أَبَوَاهُ, that their parents inherit, فَلِأُمِّهِ الثُّلُثُ. Then the mother takes 1/3. What does the father take? The verse did not say. What does the father take? Do you know? Takes the rest of inheritance. You have this concept of al-asaba, right? Which is the lineage. You're coming from like your kind of your asl. You have your fathers up there, your father, your grandfather, and then you have going down, it's all your children. So that means your children, grandchildren, and so forth. Okay? And these are the ones up and down that take the inheritance, generally speaking. Okay. So if the mother, in that case, he has no children, the mother takes 1/3 and the father takes the 2/3 of this. فَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُ إِخْوَةٌ فَلِأُمِّهِ السُّدُسُ. But if he has, if he has brothers or sisters, then they. Give me a second. I'm sorry. But if they leave siblings, then their mother will receive 1/6. مِنْ بَعْدِ وَصِيَّةٍ يُوصِي بِهَا أَوْ دَيْنٍ. All of these inheritance rules is said after a wasiyah. And a wasiyah is something that you can leave, is separate from the inheritance rules. You have up to 1/3 of the money that you can dedicate to something else, to someone else outside the general ruling, so that you cannot give it to people who are already receiving inheritance. So you have up to 1/3 that you're able to bestow, like you put something in your will to say that this money goes for charity or for something else. That is not part of the inheritance. Okay. مِنْ بَعْدِ وَصِيَّةٍ يُوصِينَ بِهَا أَوْ دَيْنٍ, or that they have a debt that they have to be paying for. Also, the scholars, they always do that. That generally speaking, from practice, as a matter of fact, the debt, goes out of the inheritance before the wasiyah. So if you have, someone has debt, you need to get the money out, fulfill the debts before you go and do the rest of the inheritance. But in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in these verses, starts as wasiyatin, min ba'di wasiyatin yusi biha awdain. Starts with the wasiyah, and then talks about the debt. And in verses comes as well, multiple times this is repeated, where it talks about wasiyah first and then dain second. So dain, subhanAllah, debt, usually there's someone who's asking for it. So people have to get it out. Wasiyah, sometimes people, because it's not something, nobody's asking for it. It's a recommendation, it's a request, it's something that comes from the person who died. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us and putting us this in perspective. It says, you have to still fulfill that. And giving it, as a matter of fact, in the verse, it takes not a priority, but it's mentioned first to kind of emphasize the fact that you should not be overlooking that. Because it said, if it's not part of the general inheritance that's going, someone who's fulfilling the inheritance might think, it's okay. We'll let it go. It's not a big deal. We're going to... No, but it is part of those. It's part of the inheritance, and you have to get it out as a part of this inheritance. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا. These rulings are included or are aimed at for what? For your parents and children. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts a very strong goal, it's a very important reminder here. It says, لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا. Both your parents and your children, you do not know which ones are more beneficial to you. In other words, as well, you can think about it as, these are the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who created is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who's created He's the one who put these rulings. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, both of these parents, we said anyone ala, like all the parents up, the father or a grandfather or so forth, or the children, nazal, like all the children, your grandchildren and so forth, these are the ones that are going to be inheriting the vast majority of this, this inheritance. But you do not know who is closer to you or is more beneficial to you. But who knows? The one who created. Therefore, the one who created gave us these rulings. I said, therefore, don't try, it's also a hint for us. I said, let's not try to use, sometimes we think about it like, as a kind of intellectual. It's like, maybe I know I'm going to give here, I'm going to give there. I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, He's put it easier for us. As a matter of fact, these rulings make it very crystal clear. I heard Shaykh Abdul Rafi yesterday talking about a lot of the issues that happened and family divisions that happens because of inheritance afterwards. Allah took this out of our hand. If someone dies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put the rulings. Why? You don't want to have family rifts afterwards. If we follow the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says it's like you do not know who is beneficial for you, more beneficial for you. Your parents or your children. Therefore, what? Divide the inheritance as per these rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for us. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريضة من الله. These are the obligations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for surely Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. And of course it is very clear now. عليما إن الله كان عليما حكيما. Allah knows everything. All-knowing, all-wise. Therefore, that's a general ruling as well. It comes to all of the ahkam, all of the rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know. Number one, Allah is always knowing, always wise. And I always say that to myself, and I'll tell this to my kids. I said, as parents, sometimes, if you're not in a good mood, you might tell your kids to do something. Say, hey, go do this. Can I play with it? No, you don't know playing, no more playing time. You cannot do. Sometimes you're not in a good mood. You're not taking a ruling, or you're not making a decision based on a wise decision. Sometimes you're just making because you're not in a good mood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single ruling is full of wisdom. Whether we knew it or not, that's something else. Sometimes we know the wisdom behind it, sometimes we do not. But we know for a fact that none of these are things to make it hard on us or anything like that. All of these rulings are there for a wisdom. Therefore, we deal with it from this aspect of wisdom, accepting it that Allah is the all-knowing, the all-wise. Okay. I'll stop here, inshallah, and tomorrow, inshallah, we start continuing on with verse 12. سبحانك الله بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك جزاكم الله خيرا.